So today I'm going to be reviewing the Acer XB270HU Gaming Monitor. This is a significant monitor because it's the first 144Hz G-Sync IPS monitor capable of 2560 by 1440 resolution. Last year I reviewed the Asus ROG PG278Q, which at the time was the best gaming monitor you could get, as it was the first monitor to offer G-Sync and 144Hz refresh rates at that same resolution. However, it used a TN panel, so when I learned about Acer offering an IPS version with the same specs, I had to get it in to compare and see if it was worth upgrading. You can find this monitor online for about $760 at the time of this video, and I'm excited to have gotten this in for review because generally speaking, IPS panels offer much better viewing angles compared to TN panels, and also typically offer better color reproduction, deeper blacks, higher brightness levels, and contrast. But for gaming users generally have preferred TN panels because of their faster response and low lag times. But the reason this Acer monitor is so special is because in all the testing that I've read, it's one of the first IPS panels that has been able to offer really fast pixel response times and virtually no input lag. So let's get this unboxed and I'll go over the design and build quality of the monitor, give you my impressions of it after using it for a little while, and then give you an in-depth comparison to the Asus ROG to kind of let you know if this is the new monitor to get if you're looking for the best gaming monitor there is. Also note that this is a G-Sync enabled monitor, so you'll need to be using an NVIDIA graphics card in order to use the G-Sync capabilities. AMD has their own version of the syncing technology and they call it FreeSync. But I don't really like AMD stuff, and I personally prefer and recommend NVIDIA graphics cards for a number of different reasons, but I won't get into here. So if you're an AMD user looking to upgrade your monitor, I suggest finding a FreeSync capable one, or better yet, sell your card and get an NVIDIA. I'm just kidding mostly, but in any case, the benefits of a high refresh rate IPS panel at 1440p is definitely something that can be enjoyed by all gamers. So here are the three pieces that it comes in that you have to assemble. The good thing is it doesn't really require any tools at all, so that's nice. So it attaches pretty easy. I mean, you basically just snap this in there, and then you just attach it to the base stand by screwing this into the bolt in the bottom. You know, just to notice, this kind of bottom plate is just a flimsy kind of plastic, so that's a little disappointing. And this little screw here, this tab feels like it's gonna break off when you tighten it down, but no big deal. I mean, once I did get it assembled, it's pretty stable and it does its job. So this is different than the Asus, because Asus comes, you just pull it out of the box, it's ready to go. This one you actually have to assemble. So here it is out of the box and assembled. You can see it looks pretty good. Now, if you didn't know, the reason that you might want a 144Hz monitor is obviously the more frames per second you can get, the smoother and more fluid like games are gonna look, and even just in general, your operating system, you know, when you drag windows around, it's gonna look smoother, animations are gonna look smoother, everything's just gonna look kind of nicer and more fluid. And obviously, especially in gaming and especially first-person gamers, you want every kind of advantage you can get, every frame you can get per second. So getting a 144Hz monitor is kind of the way to go in gaming. This is, like I said, this is a G-Sync enabled monitor. So if you have an NVIDIA card, it's going to be able to use the G-Sync technology, which if you don't know that, what it does is it basically syncs up your video card and your monitor, so they're kind of on the same page, so there's no stuttering and no screen tearing. Now, one really nice feature of the Acer monitor is that it has 4 USB 3.0 ports, and 2 of them are on the side, which is really convenient compared to the Asus monitor, because the Asus monitor has 2 USB ports, but they're on the underneath side and you can't really get to them without sticking your head around, and it's really annoying. So if you have a little thumb drive, it's really just easy to just pop it in the side. Here's a shot of the underside of the monitor. Here's your USB output and then the 2 inputs, so 4 USB total ports in total, these 2 and then 2 on the side. Here's the display port input, the release button to take the screen off the stand, and then the 3-prong power outlet, and then this has on and off button there. Here's a quick shot of the startup screen when you power the monitor on. One thing to notice here is the cable management of the Acer. You know, sitting directly in front of the monitor, you're gonna see a little bit more cabling because of how the ports in the back of the monitor are split, so they have to come into one and then go out the back there. Whereas on the Asus, they're just kind of all in the top directly in the back here, so you just don't see as much sitting straight in front of it. So if you're anal about seeing a lot of power cables, then I have to say this is one drawback of the Acer monitor. And so I'll go over the on-screen displays that it allows you to adjust. There's a few here. So there's the display mode, which you have user, custom setting, eco mode, standard, gaming, movie. I just keep it on user and then adjust my brightness and contrast levels. Then you also have the brightness setting as its own button, and you adjust that. And then here you you have your overdrive setting, which the optimum selection is to put it on normal when you're running at 144 hertz. And then you have ultra low motion blur, which you can't use in G-Sync mode, so I don't really use that. Finally, you have your main menu here, which allows you to adjust the picture quality. So you kind of go in here. You can do brightness and contrast here. To adjust the level, you got to actually go into it, select it, and change that. And then you can adjust gamma and color temperature. And then here you can, the next thing you can adjust your language, on-screen display, automatic timeout. And then here you adjust some other settings where you can adjust your overdrive refresh rate bar. It's kind of a weird thing. It kind of gives you this monitor. It gives you this bar over here that tells you what your refresh rate is. So you can make it 4 pixels wide or 8 pixels wide, and then the higher your refresh rate is, the higher this bar goes up and down. So I don't really know why you would want that taking up real estate on the screen, but anyway, that's one of the options in the menu. And then just the information here. And one other thing I wanted to mention about the brightness level is I can have it comfortably set on 80 here. It can go up to 100, it gets nice and bright. I will say 80, between 75 and 80 is good enough even in my lit room during the day. Compared to the Asus monitor, I have to have that on 100 and it still tends to be slightly dark. So the brightness of this IPS panel is just without a question a lot better. And here just an example of how the screen is inset in the monitor to where the bezel has about like a 1/4 inch inset here, so the monitor doesn't sit flush with the bezel, which not really a huge deal. You're not like you notice it when you're using it, but it just doesn't look as nice as a design where the panel sits flush with the bezel like on the Asus. So you can see the LED, there's a little clear piece of plastic between these two buttons. Kind of hard to see in the video, I'm sure, but if you look, there is an LED, the blue LED back there is not centered directly behind the clear piece of plastic that's supposed to light up. It's kind of to the bottom and a little bit off to the right. So what happens is you end up seeing it at certain angles when you're looking at your monitor, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's blinding to your eye, but you definitely catch the reflection of it in your eye. It's a little distracting. And I think it tells about the build quality of the monitor too, that they kind of just set the LED, it almost looks like they just plopped it in there rather than kind of getting it lined up and centered behind the clear piece of plastic that's supposed to light up. So here you'll notice another example of the crappy build quality of this Acer. You can see these plastic buttons. They have these little white ridges on them where it's like a rough edge on them, so you can tell where the plastic buttons weren't really cut cleanly at the factory. Here's the buttons on the back of the Acer for the on-screen controls. You know, just kind of comparison to the Acer controls, which were like all cut up. These are nice shaped and there's a nice feel to them, good click to them, and then it has the nice little joystick I was saying. So this is a lot easier to control there. The other thing here is you can notice the logo, not the logo, but the model number here is not printed straight horizontally. It's kind of crooked. So it's like, what the hell, man? I spent $800 on this monitor. I expect that to be on there straight. First of all, I don't think they should even put the model number on the bezel. It kind of looks stupid to begin with, but the fact they put on there crooked, just another knock. One kind of funny thing is, in the Acer monitor, you can actually see heat tape inside. You see the heat shielding tape in there. It's just kind of visible, and it's not even laid in there really flat and evenly. So here's kind of what the monitor looks like. It's just sitting on the desk. Not a horrible looking monitor from far away, definitely. Looks like any other monitor. And like I said, when you're sitting at the computer, you don't really notice all the annoying little things like the reflective bezel and the thicker bezel and the fact that the screen's inset and, you know, the fact that you have the blue LED shining. You know, once you're actually looking at the screen, which is a super nice screen, you kind of forget about all those things, so it doesn't really matter, but not quite as nice, you know, as the Asus in my opinion. Really just nitpicking here with this against the Asus, but to me aesthetics is important and build quality. If you're gonna have an $800 monitor, the build quality inside and out should be really good. So here's a shot of the two monitors side by side. I'm using my same desktop background. The color is going to look a little different here, you know, because the camera's probably not picking it up perfectly, and they definitely look different to my naked eye. You know, I don't have a calibration tool to really get these exactly identical, but you know, I kind of fiddled with the settings as much as I could tell what produced the best picture for each of the monitors. So you can kind of see here, one thing I wanted to demonstrate is that the viewing angles with the Asus monitor on the right, you know, is a lot worse, and that's to be expected because it's a TN panel. So yeah, that's one of the big downfalls of the TN panel of the Asus, and you can see how the monitor on the right just gets darker. So hopefully that kind of demonstrates that. One thing that you can really tell is how the monitor or how the panel's inset, whereas this is a lot more flush, so it's just a nicer design in my opinion. Well, I think anybody's opinion really. You can notice too that they're fully extended up, so the Acer sits only about 1/8 of an inch higher there, the top of the edge of the screen, So not really anything, it's very marginal. And then if let's see if I move these all the way down, you can see actually the Acer goes a lot further down, which is kind of cool depending on your desk arrangement. A little bit more flexibility there. And then of course they both rotate horizontally and they both pivot and swivel. You know, and I hate to keep harping on the build quality, but you can see it has this pivot point here. But you would think, like the Asus, that this rotates in the pivot point, so the base doesn't move, right? But no, that's not actually the case. In the case of the Acer, it has a cheap bottom plate which rotates, which makes the whole monitor rotate. You can see that there. But you know, you might not care about little things like that, but I thought it was kind of interesting. To me, it's a big deal. I mean, if you're gonna spend $800 on a monitor, you should kind of expect that things are gonna be built a little bit nicer. One downfall of having the glossy plastic as the bezel is when after you use these on-screen buttons, you get a lot of fingerprints. You know, it ends up being annoying, especially compared to the Asus. The buttons are all behind, and even if you did touch the screen because or even if you did touch the bezel, because it's matte, you don't get any fingerprints. And you know, just the casing on the Asus monitor is just without a question way nicer. You can just kind of see the stand and the base and everything. Pretty apparent that Asus spent a little bit more time designing their monitor, whereas Acer kind of just got an awesome IPS panel and slapped it in the kind of like some cheap housing, and then charged pretty much the same price as the Asus. But I guess they can justify the price because the panel is definitely better. And the guys over at TFT Central, which do super in-depth testing of monitors, way more than I could ever do or really even want to do. You know, according to them, the Asus monitor has in total 4 millisecond input lag, where the Acer has 3 milliseconds, so it was 1 millisecond faster. And there's 2 response times that are kind of important. One is the signal processing of the monitor, so how long it takes the monitor to process the signal from the video card, and then there's the pixel response time, which is how fast it takes for a pixel to kind of change colors. Without a question, the IPS panel is really, really nice. The blacks are deeper, whites are crisper, all the colors are crisper because there's more contrast and more brightness. And with the contrast, the colors just pop more. You know, it's just a nicer experience. You know, in game, I noticed little different things popping out, like grass and different textures would pop more on the Acer. It just gives you a lot nicer visuals. So it's definitely a step up from the TN panel. So while the Acer is a really great panel, it suffers just too much, in my opinion, from poor build quality, and there's no way I could really recommend it, especially knowing that Asus just announced they're coming out with their version of an IPS 144Hz monitors in the fall. That's the PG279Q and the MG279Q, which is their FreeSync version. And when those come out, I'm really confident will be the ones to get, depending on which graphics cards you use, obviously. And I know with technology, there's always something new around the corner, but in this case, those will definitely be worth waiting for and will be the best gaming monitors you can get, at least until the industry can come out with the 4K monitors that can do over 120 Hz. So, but I hope you guys liked the video. Thanks a lot for watching, and you guys take care. We'll see you in the next one.